Welcome to the Workaholic Army and welcome to Do You Believe in Predictive Data Analytics? This is a deep dive into a subject that is kind of confusing for a lot of real estate agents across the country and doesn't really have much relevance in the minds of many real estate agents. When I ask if real estate agents are using predictive data analytics, they almost invariably say no. So I'd like to kind of help you understand how the data aggregation on consumer predictive behavior works in residential real estate. And we're going to do that today in as fast as we can. But at the end of the session, we're going to give you a few options to continue along the journey with us. The first question I have is, can your computer tell? Can your computer tell if you're planning a trip? I think your computer can tell if you're planning a trip. Can your computer tell if you have a dog? Just think these through as you're going. Can your computer tell if you're having a baby? Maybe you're pregnant and you're expecting, right? So can your computer tell? Do you enjoy gardening? If you're constantly searching for dahlia seeds and tulip bulbs and carrots and corn to plant, you're probably into gardening, and your computer can tell what you're thinking. How about if you're thinking about making a move? Do you think that your computer, that little laptop that you sit on, or your desktop computer, or even your iPad can tell if you're thinking about making a move? What if you're thinking about taking out a mortgage? Do you think if you are behaving over the course of a few days as if you are about to take out a mortgage, can your computer tell that you're thinking about taking out a mortgage? And maybe most importantly for this deeper dive conversation with residential real estate agents across the country, are you thinking about selling your home? Is there any way that your computer can tell if you're thinking about selling your home? That is where the worm might turn for our residential real estate workaholics across the country. Try this experiment, if you will. Try this experiment, workaholics. Go into Google. Just go into Google and type in the word baby cribs for sale. This is a test of whether predictive data analytics works in 2025, 26, and beyond. What you'll see when you type in baby cribs for sale is about a half a dozen baby crib vendors that have paid money to show up on Google. Based on those words, they paid for a keyword called baby cribs, or keywords, baby cribs for sale. And Wayfair was especially prevalent, Rebel and Webstaurant, I think that's one. And then there was one called Nestig and Lifted. So these vendors paid good money per click to have you go into Google and find out up front if you were searching for a baby crib. That in itself is not that complex or confusing, right? That's called pay-per-click advertising. So if you punched in Parkland Homes for Sale or Franklin, North Carolina Homes for Sale, you would see a list of all the vendors that paid per click for those words that were for sale on Google. But what you might not know is if you clicked again onto the Oxford baby crib there on the left, or you clicked to that little $160 crib on the far left from Wayfair, what do you think begins to happen? What could begin to happen on your Facebook account? On the right side of your Facebook account, could you start to see baby crib ads? What comes into your YouTube profile? What kind of ads change when you're watching YouTube now? Do you see different ads on your YouTube profile than you did before you searched for baby cribs? Absolutely you will. And the more you search for baby cribs or baby items, diapers, and baby food and breast pumps and things like that, the more that you'll start to see that in your United States Postal Service mailbox, you'll probably receive a Babies R Us catalog, or you'll receive a magazine about babies. And if you're on TikTok or Instagram, you know they can read your mind, right? They know what things you like by how long you scroll and what you scroll on and what you search. So your TikTok and Instagram profiles start to look differently. Now, this doesn't excite most residential real estate agents that I talk to. They go, what does that have to do with me? Well, we're going to dig a little deeper and show you some examples that you can apply real time, real world in residential real estate today. Think about this spooky little concept. Predictive data analytics compiles all your interests in a main data aggregation server, and then it creates a profile or dozens and dozens and dozens of profiles on you because you have dozens and dozens of interests. And then it sells those profiles to advertisers. An example of a predictive data trigger in residential real estate would be if you can buy predictive data of people who are most likely to list their home for sale. There's a lookalike audience of characteristics of people who are most likely to list their home for sale. One of them is an absentee owner that does not live in their home, or a landlord that has done recent valuation searches on that property. Would that be a pretty good indicator that he or she is poking around and just thinking about the value of his property? Someone who just recently filed for divorce, a homeowner who's behind on his payments, someone who just pulled permits for recent renovations or paid for a recent appraisal. Maybe someone has shown up on the MLS or Zillow or Realtor.com in the past 6, 12, or 18 months for sale, but their listing expired, or they canceled the listing, or they terminated the listing. Can you see how the computer aggregate data could forecast that, hey, this person has a fairly serious interest in liquidating this piece of property? Now, there's no infallible predictive, but if someone had a job transfer or a job loss or any employment change to speak of, there is a broad set of statistical observations that can prove that this group of predictive data is a trigger in most likely to list a home in residential real estate. But who buys these profiles? When you think about the biggest players in the world, the billionaires, the trillionaires, Apple's a multi-trillion-dollar company, right? Amazon, Zillow, GM, Ford, and Tesla, big pharma, insurance companies, all of them, and I will say again with certainty that all of them purchase predictive data and compile that data as part of their overarching marketing strategy. But who doesn't use predictive data? Small companies, small business owners, a local title company probably does not buy predictive data. Mortgage loan originators, some of the largest mortgage bankers like Rocket and probably like a Fairway or a United Wholesale Mortgage might buy data. But the local individual MLO, the local individual mortgage brokers probably don't purchase predictive data analytic databases on a regular basis. Maybe it's unapproachable for them. Maybe it's just too confusing, or maybe they don't think it's available. But independent broker owners, real estate broker owners, and local real estate agents are not big users of predictive data analytics. Well, let's break it down to something that's tangible, something that you can use, something that you can apply today to take more listings over the next 6 to 9 months. You know, if you want to know how we've taken so many listings over the last 38 years, I think the number one thing is we operated as a one-stop shop with our mortgage company. We partnered with a mortgage company from the earliest days to make sure that we were a one-stop shopping experience for our consumers. We didn't just take the leads or take the listings and then let somebody else handle the mortgages. We partnered with the most respected mortgage company that we could find, and we found RESPA compliant manner to operate as a one-stop shop. We did it with a company called Home Bank Mortgage for a long time, and then we partnered with companies like Southeast Mortgage and American Equity Mortgage and PNC and Bank of America over the years. And then our main partner for the last 14 years was a company called Annie Mac Home Mortgage out of Mount Laurel, New Jersey. We ran the Annie Mac Worx real estate productivity platform to help more and more realtors create that one-stop shopping experience. And in 2023, we founded a 501c3 a nonprofit charitable organization called the Hero Benefits Network to help heroes experience the convenience of a one-stop shopping experience. And since then, we've brought on 2,500 real estate agents in 12 states. So you're going to see a little more information about the Hero Benefits Network as we go. But just proof positive, I was operating in residential real estate in the mid-'80s and all the way through up until today, which I just received a $5,400 commission check on my desk from a referral fee. So I'm very, very active in residential real estate every single day of my life. And my most recent foray into residential real estate was managing $1 million a year lead budget through a company that was called Home Hunt. And we built a lead aggregate system to create a one-stop shopping experience for the consumer. This ad that I'm showing you now is just, I think this was published in 1989, if you read carefully in there. And I had already gotten my Graduate of the Realtor Institute. I was a full-time life or dog residential real estate agent. I had an REO, a couple of REO accounts. I was involved in listing properties for banks. I was involved in listing properties for builders. And I was involved in, obviously, straight to consumer marketing. And my inventory was about 85% of my transactions were on the listing side of the transaction. And that was for a sustained 37-year career. Now, I don't look like that anymore, but 37 years we used this hunt and peck system for absentee owners. What I mean by that is we would manually cross-reference the county tax roll system. That meant that in any given morning, I would get up, pull the county tax rolls, and I would cross-reference to build my own database of vacation homeowners, landlords, and vacant properties. And that was early stage predictive data, right? I would look for people who were vacation homeowners, landlords, and who owned vacant properties. And I was doing this in a hunt and peck, rudimentary, not technically driven, certainly no AI and no predictive data analytics. And then, to put an exclamation mark on it, we would hand address personal notes to those owners at their primary residence. So remember, they owned a home, a vacation home or a rental property or a vacant property in my town, but they might live in Toronto, or they might live in New York City, or they might live in New Mexico. So we had to hand address the personal notes to the property tax bill wherever the property tax bill was mailed. And that is available to all real estate agents in the county tax rolls through their local board of realty or the tax roll system. Now, that little old antiquated system, we sold 3,400 homes, and we taught over 90,000 real estate agents in the last 30 years how to do this exact system. When we were doing this, we taught them how to go into the tax rolls. We taught them how to find the property tax billing addresses that don't match. And then we showed them these simple little 3-line or 3-sentence notes that have been so important in my career. Remember, I put 5 kids through college and 5 kids through private school. I bought all 5 kids' cars. I've vacationed all over the world. And I've done that on an income into the 7 figures a year in residential real estate. And that's different than 6 figures. You know, making $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year is fun. Making $1.1 million, $1.3 million in residential real estate takes system implementation, and a simple rudimentary system like this done on a regular basis could absolutely make a huge difference in your income. And I want to say this out loud. It could change the quality of your life. If you're a residential real estate agent operating on the buy side of transactions most often, and you can convert to becoming a higher volume listing agent, it's going to change the quality of your life. It's going to change the quality of the vacations that you're able to take with your family. It's going to change the quantity of income that comes in, and certainly will change the per hour rate that you're able to generate in residential real estate. But look how simple these notes are. I passed by your South Florida home. The only thing I would change about that sentence is I would put the subdivision name. I passed by your Shadowwood home this morning. We're working with a lot of families who would love to purchase a home like yours before the holidays. Please call me if you would consider upgrading, downsizing, or a 1031 exchange. Your Shadowwood Coral Springs home may be worth more than you think. Now, I know that that actual letter was a copy of a letter that we actually sent. And then on the right-hand side, simplified even further, I was outside your Pompano Park home yesterday. Do you have any interest in selling? Your house may be worth more than you think. There's a consistency on the way we end the letter that is proof positive that it works the best. Your Shadowwood Coral Springs home may be worth more than you think. Your house might be worth more than you think. See, we're consistent with that because we've proven that it works. Now, as we switch gears into data acquisition and coming into the modern age of technology, we have been able to scrub mailing lists, cell phone lists, and email addresses against predictive data analysis. So these sellers that we used to just pull up out of the database and send letters to, we now are able to clean the database of people who I didn't want to get somebody who just bought the house, and I didn't want to get somebody that had very little chance of selling. So we were able to use predictive data analysis to sort and prioritize the sellers that were most likely to sell. We've used this program, and realtors across the country called it the Miracle Letter. They've used it with for sale honors, expired. They've used it for absentee owners, like we're talking about here, 20 letters per week. One was saying, and I got my first listing offer after just 35 letters sent. So this is real stuff, okay? This is stuff that you can apply in your local market today. This is a picture. I wish it was dated, but it was literally not more than 15 days ago that I was sending out Hero Benefits Network letters to absentee owners to acquire listings. And what the system that I've always used, and the system that I might recommend for an average emerging realtor, for a good, comfortable pace and cadence to the program, is to set aside a 30-minute work burst and try to zip off 20 handwritten notes in a week. You know, and I'm going to tell you this, and this is fact-based, okay? You're going to get 1 or 2 sellers that will call you back each week. Now, it doesn't mean that they're eager to list their home for sale. On those 1 or 2 inbound seller calls per week, I want you to think of how a shark hits its bait once before it decides if it's going to eat it. You know, all these surfers, they get their leg bit. It's not that the shark's trying to eat them. It's the shark's trying to find out if there's any meat on it. And that's what these sellers are going to do to you. They're going to pick up the phone and find out if there's any meat to your offering. They're going to say things like, why were you by my house? Why did you contact me? Am I on some list? So there's a pessimist, there's a cynicist, there's a defensive posture from a lot of consumers when they reach out to a direct mail response. So you have to be well trained, and we will train you how to handle these initial objections and what you can do to convert these shark bites, what I call shark bites, where they just nibble and they just want to see what you're all about. They want to see if there's any meat on the bone. And then a lot of them will say, well, do you have a buyer? Do you have an offer? We don't want to list, but if you had an offer, we might consider it. So understand that, you know, residential real estate listing acquisition is about predicting which sellers are going to list and predicting what the seller is going to say when they call so that you're better prepared for it. That's called objection handling techniques. That's called scripting. That's called dialogue training. We do an immense amount of dialogue training and we do an immense amount of scripting. But in the end, you as a residential real estate agent should know that once every 100 or 200 or 300 letters, somebody will pick up the phone and say, it's so funny you sent me a letter. We were just talking about selling that house. But more often they'll say things like, do you have a buyer? Do you have an offer? We don't want to list our house for sale, but we would entertain offers. Why were you by my house? Why did you contact me? Am I on some list? That is a real world interpretation of what sales feels like. You know, when you walk up to somebody in retail and you say, can I help you? They always say, no, just looking, right? It doesn't mean that they're just looking. They walked in the store because they want to buy something, but it's just their pre-programmed response to when someone walks up to them and says, can I help you? Well, that's similar to how you have to interpret selling in the residential real estate space, in the listing acquisition side of the matrix, because, you know, when they ask these questions, they're actually asking if you have any merit, if you have any meat on the bone. Is there anything substantive to what you're bringing to the table? Well, after 37 years of listing absentee owners, vacant properties, and Airbnbs and rental properties, we met a realtor on the Virginia shore down south of Ocean City, Maryland. I think it is south. I don't have a map in front of me, but we were teaching, training, and coaching realtors. And then we met a guy that taught us a thing or two about the volume of vacation homeowners, landlords, and vacant properties, because he's right on the Virginia shore. So he's got tens of thousands of vacation homeowners and vacant properties and landlords that do Airbnb. This is when we discovered the data hack. This is why we believe in predictive data analytics for residential real estate. He used the same exact absentee owner handwritten note system that we used, almost verbatim, the miracle letter that we talked about. He employed teenagers and retired people to handwrite his notes for him. So he might pay a 16, 18-year-old girl, you know, $20 for 20 notes, $1 a note or less. I don't know the pay scale in each neighborhood, but maybe you have a retired, you know, parent or a teenage daughter that wants allowance, or maybe you have a nephew or niece that showed interest in residential real estate and you want to get them involved. Maybe you have a personal assistant in your real estate organization that would be able to set aside about 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes a week to send out notes. But he was sending between 60 and 100 absentee owner notes a day. So if you just said about 3,500 notes a year. Remember I told you if you did 20 a week, you'd get 1 or 2 calls back a week? That's true. Well, look at what he did. He listed and sold 410 properties in 1 year. 410 listings in 1 year. This is not a fable. This is not a fairy tale. This is not a gimmick. This is a true story of something that we learned in the field working with residential real estate agents and noticing the similarities between our system and his, and noticing the volume that he was able to achieve, which blew our mind. And this is when we discovered this data hack that we believe in. Well, we have the data. I run a nonprofit 501c3 charitable organization called the Hero Benefits Network with my friend Randy Nemiroff, my wife Carrie, and that's me on the far right. We're the national sales directors. You can try our campaigns via handwritten note. You're allowed to send these via email if you get the database. You can even text to these homeowners, and you can also target them on social media. Via a targeting called CSV database targeting. It's not that complex. It simply loads the database into social media and then targets those individuals who are most likely to sell. And the 3 campaigns that we use most often in our organization are: would you entertain an offer on your Franklin, North Carolina home? Your North Carolina home might be worth more than you think. And sell your home to an essential worker and save on commissions. That's a technique that we teach inside of the Hero Benefits Network. And it involves charging a referral fee to the listing agent. And then we are able to rebate that referral fee back to the homeowner who sold their home to an essential worker. So you can get certified and be ready to go at the herobenefitsnetwork.org. Just go to the Get Certified button. Remember, we have the data. And if you'd like to work more closely with us, either at the Hero Benefits Network or with your mortgage partner on the local market, and create that true one-stop shopping experience with your mortgage partner, we have the absentee owner listing system. You just need to bring to it those 30 or 60-minute work bursts once a week. We have the data that's already sorted and represents the most likely and probable or highest probability of sale. We can get you all set up. Don't be shy to use that telephone number there on your side. That is a Google Voice number, so it doesn't bother me. You can text me. You can leave me a voicemail message, and I will absolutely be committed to calling you back and getting you everything you need to join the Workaholic Army, to set up a one-stop shopping experience with your mortgage partner, and to go ahead and get hero ready, get certified to serve essential workers, law enforcement officers, teachers, firefighters, and medical professionals in your local community. Thanks so much. My name is Russ Fitzpatrick. That is our number, 828-482-7659. Don't be afraid to use it, or go to herobenefitsnetwork.org and get certified today.